Hey everybody, welcome to Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. This is episode number 150 of our YouTube channel and podcast, and I cannot be more excited to continue sharing with you guys personal finance topics that I think could be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. Today, we are going to be talking about something a little different and something that I think we definitely need to understand, because we talked about investing in your family yesterday. But today, I think it would be a good balancing act to that episode to talk about not enabling others financially. And those people can and typically are people that are in your family that you could be enabling financially. And we're going to talk about what enabling looks like, why you shouldn't be doing it, and how you could be doing it and not even know that you are taking part in somebody's bad habits. And so that is going to be our focus today, and hopefully it helps you to be responsible financially and to not just feed into somebody's bad financial habits. Before we get started though, if you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to anything that you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcast, then be sure to subscribe and review the podcast on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you build a financial plan that is specific to you and your family situation, I can help you do that. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab, and you can pick the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. So what does it mean to be enabling someone? Well, in its simplest form, to enable someone is to make their consequences go away. It is to fix something or to change a situation or to do something in order to make that individual's consequences go away. The consequences for their actions, the consequences for what they have done in their life. And so if you are enabling somebody, you are actively going about trying to protect somebody from some consequence or some set of consequences. And this happens financially all the time. People don't want their friends or their family to suffer the consequences of their actions, and therefore they will give them money and try to protect them from those consequences. Now listen, I am all for generosity, right? I am all for if somebody falls on hard times, if somebody is having a tough time financially and they're trying to do the right things, they're trying to get back on track, they're trying, and they just can't, and they need some help. By all means, help the people who need help. Do the most you can for those around you in order to help them and help them to build their life up financially or otherwise, right? But specifically financially, based on the fact that this is a money show and we are talking about enabling people financially today, right? So be generous, do things for people, be a good steward of what's given to you, and help others to build up their lives financially as well. But you have to be aware of where your money is going. You have to be aware of what your money is being used for. You have to be aware of a person's situation, because if you are constantly throwing money towards a person's situation, if you are constantly trying to help someone, and many of you know what I'm talking about, you're constantly trying to give somebody money in order to help them get back on their feet or do something specific, and you realize that they just keep coming back for money and they just want more, but their situation is not getting any better, then that could be a telltale sign that you are absolutely enabling this person. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is these characteristics, these red flags as to if you see these things going on in your life, if you see these things going on in your personal financial life, the giving that you do to other people, then you could be enabling somebody else's misbehavior. You could be enabling their bad habits. And that is something that needs to be cut off. It needs to be cut off. And the reason that it needs to be cut off is because if you're constantly throwing money down a drain, right, that is bad management of your money. That is not prudent to do with what you have. And so why would you continue to waste money, continue to throw money away if you just know what the outcome is going to be? And I know that there are people that you care about, and there are people that you're like, hey, well, they need the money and it seems to keep them afloat or whatever, right? But if they never choose to do something for themselves, if they never make the transition into being self-sufficient financially and they keep coming back to you, you are not doing them any good. You are acting as a crutch. And we do not want to act as crutches for others. We want to be able to help people for a short period of time and then be able to allow them to walk on their own and do things on their own, financially especially. So let's talk about some of the characteristics of financial enablers. Now, the first thing that you will see a lot if you are enabling somebody financially is that you are frequently assisting them, right? The assistance is going to continue time and time again. With family members or maybe even with close friends, there may be good reasons to provide financial assistance. However, the frequency of times that somebody asks you for some help, asks you for some type of assistance, and the subsequent assistance that you give can be a good indication for enabling them or not. So if you have somebody who, just has a one-time deal and you can help them and help them to walk out of that, relatively unscathed, then that's perfectly fine, right? But if you know that somebody, let's say somebody close to you has a substance abuse problem and they keep coming back to you time and time again, asking for money, asking for help, asking for, whatever type of financial resource you can provide them, then that can be a huge red flag as to whether or not you are enabling them. And again, we do not want to be in this place where we are enabling somebody. Another example of this could also be, let's say you have an adult son that isn't working, right, and is not showing any signs of trying to get a job. They live in your home, but your son is constantly maxing out their credit card. They're constantly, going into debt to do things, trying to, get new vehicles, going and spending money online, things like that, and is constantly asking you for money, asks you for like $1,000 every single month. And you just keep giving it to him. You just keep giving that $1,000 every single month like it's nothing. And your son continues to just waste your money. That is an enabling situation. That is a situation where you are enabling his bad behavior. In the same way as a drug addict, somebody who is not being smart, somebody who is not doing things that are constructive, doing things that you want your money going towards, you do not want to be giving your money to those things that are not constructive, that are not positive, that are not building things in the way that you would use your money in order to do things in your own life, right? You don't want to try to quote unquote help somebody or assist somebody in a way that is just going to perpetuate the cycle, right? And that's why the more that you see you having to assist this person, the more you see that you're having to, make transfers into their account or hand them a check or hand them cash or whatever it may be, the more you see that happening, the more likely you are actually enabling that person. Another thing that could indicate enabling activity is not just the number of times that you assist someone, but the amount of the assistance that you are actually giving, right? Sometimes you need to give a pretty large loan depending on somebody's circumstances. Often how much somebody asks for and how much you give them may determine if you are enabling them. And let's say maybe your son and daughter-in-law just had a baby. They can't afford to replace their car right now, but it would really be safer if their family was in a new vehicle and you give them $10,000 to buy a car, right? Interest-free loan. One could say that is not enabling, right? Because it's something that is going to help your grandchild, right? But let's say there's a situation where, your friend has been wanting to go on vacation, bought their plane ticket and, started to save for their own vacation related expenses, but ended up spending that money on trips to the mall and gambling and different things that are going on in their life. And then they don't have enough money to cover their vacation now and ask you for $1,000 to cover their vacation. I mean, that could be an enabling behavior. It is enabling your friend's bad decision making, right? And that's something, again, you have to toe a line here because there is a judgment to be made. Unfortunately, you are the judge of what is enabling behavior and what is not. Because enabling behavior is going to look like something, again, with the frequency of assistance that is perpetuated. It's something that is continuing to happen. And if your friend is asking you for money in this type of situation, then that means that that friend probably believes that you will give it to them. And you might have already given them money in the past. And the more that you assist someone, the more comfortable that person is going to be with asking you for more and more money. And again, the giving part of things, right? The being generous part of things, I completely understand. But if you have a particular relationship with somebody and you understand that you are contributing to their bad behavior, you are contributing to the fact that they keep coming back to you for money, that they keep coming back to need your help or your assistance or whatever it may be, then you are likely, one, in a toxic relationship with that person, and two, you are enabling them. You are financing their bad behavior, and that is the absolute last thing that we want to be doing. And so that brings up the third thing that could be an indicator of whether or not you are enabling someone, and that is the relationship that you have to that individual. Although no family is perfect, many individuals are close with their family members and have tighter bonds than they do with friends. And this actually turns into some really bad, toxic relationships sometimes, because if you're really close with your family members and you feel like, oh, well, I would do anything for family, I will do anything to help my family out or things like that, then you can really justify financing their misbehavior. You can really justify financing their bad decisions and constantly assisting them in things that are not healthy for them financially. And so as a result, right, if you're in need, the first people you might turn to are your family members. Well, similarly, the first people that they might turn to is you. Now, what does this look like in practice? Well, let's say you have a family member, a cousin, an aunt, uncle, niece, whoever you're related to, and they have an issue, right? Let's say they are going to come up short on their bills this month, and this isn't something that happens all the time. Maybe their hours got cut, maybe they got laid off, whatever it may be, and they ask you for, hey, can you just help me to cover my bills this month? Can you help me to stay afloat for this month? Well, that doesn't seem like enabling in most situations, because that person actually fell on hard times. That person actually needs your help. That person actually cannot pay their bills any other way. And so stepping into that place and helping that person does not seem like an enabling behavior. But let's say a family member that for sure has a full-time job, for sure has the ability to pay their own bills, and yet is asking you consistently to help them pay their bills and help them to cover their expenses, right? This happens very commonly, and we'll talk about this here in a little while, with the parent-child relationship, where the child may have a full-time job, the child may have the resources to be self-sufficient, and yet they choose not to be because their parents keep feeding them money. And so this is a toxic relationship, and this is enabling behavior because you are feeding into the bad habits of your child. You are not teaching your child or whomever else it may be to live below their means, to live within the bounds of the income that they make, because ultimately we all have to live within the bounds of the income that we make. And if we're constantly trying to push those boundaries by borrowing money from somebody, and that person is giving us money, well, that person is enabling your bad behavior, and that needs to stop immediately. And then the fourth potential indicator of you enabling someone or somebody enabling you even is the effect it has on the giver, the effect that it has on the person that is giving the assistance. And why is this important, and why does this tell us anything? Because if you are spending yourself into a hole or giving yourself into a hole just to keep this other person afloat, or just to keep this other person from reaping the consequences of their actions, then you are very likely enabling that person. You are very likely enabling them to make bad decisions, because you are shielding them from consequences at any cost to yourself. You don't care what the cost is. You just want that person to be better off. You just want that person to be more financially secure, which you continuing to give them money is not going to ultimately make them more financially secure. It is going to hinder them financially in the long term. And so if you happen to find yourself putting off things like saving for your retirement, or paying off your debt, or saving for an emergency fund, or things that are within my financial action plan, if you find yourself putting those things off in order to help somebody else out, because you're using so much money in order to assist somebody in their misbehavior, or just to assist somebody, period. Maybe you don't know if they're misbehaving or not, but if you find yourself doing that, then you could be caught in an enabling relationship. You could be enabling somebody and could be financing their misbehavior, because again, we don't need to give ourselves into the poorhouse, right? We don't need to give ourselves to a position where we absolutely cannot cover our own issues, our own emergencies, our own debt payments, our own retirement, things like that. We don't need to be spending so much on somebody else's life that we end up not being able to at least take care of the needs of our own life. And if you see that happening, then you could have a toxic relationship with somebody that you are enabling to do bad things, that you are enabling, maybe not even bad things, but just irresponsible things in their own life. Now, the bottom line is it can be hard to figure out if you're enabling somebody or not. It can be hard to recognize if you are being enabled in your own bad behavior. And hopefully none of you are, but the reality of it all is that enabling behavior is very, very common. Enabling behavior is not something that is new. It is not something that is likely going to stop anytime soon. When it comes to our society, when it comes to our culture, right? We want to do the best by our family. We want to do best by those people we are closest to. And sometimes we think that enabling behavior is the behavior that is going to help them the most. But unfortunately, it is not. Unfortunately, it is not what is going to be best for that particular individual. And so it is tricky to understand whether or not you are enabling somebody, but be aware, at least be conscious of what you are doing. Be conscious of how much money you're giving somebody. Be conscious of the frequency in which you are giving somebody some money. Be conscious of whether or not the relationship that you have with somebody is clouding your ability to make good decisions with your money. And then also be conscious of the effect that it is having on you and your finances. And don't ever allow yourself to struggle because you are having to keep somebody else's head above water. Right? We can't help other people if we do not help ourselves, right? We cannot help other people. And I don't mean by help ourselves by just maximizing everything we have, but we can't help other people if we can't pay our bills, right? We can't help other people if we can't do the basic necessities of life for ourselves, right? But once we can do that, then you can look towards helping others. And hopefully you can stay away from those enabling behaviors and enabling relationships. Now, I want to dive into one specific type of enabling that I alluded to a little while ago, because I think that this is the most common and the biggest issue when it comes to enabling other people financially, and that is parental enabling, right? It is parents enabling their children. And so I want to give you some signs of parental enabling and then some signs of healthy giving to your children. So let's get right to it. Sacrificing or jeopardizing your financial well-being for your children. Again, anytime you're putting yourself in a worse position in order to put somebody else in a better position, right? You can't pay your bills, but you're giving them money to pay their bills. That is an issue. Another sign of parental enabling is having trouble saying no to your children's request for money, right? And this leads to that frequency thing, right? I was talking about the frequency of your giving to somebody and how that can be indicative of whether or not you are enabling someone. Well, if you have trouble saying no, if you have trouble giving somebody a negative response in any case, especially your child, then it is going to be hard to keep money in your pocket. It is going to be hard to manage your money well, and it is likely going to create an enabling relationship. And then repeatedly being taken advantage of financially by your kids. And what does this look like? This may look like, let's say you have given your kid a credit card in order to use for quote unquote emergencies, right? Or you've given your kids a credit card to, you only can use this much of the balance every month or whatever it may be. And they are constantly pushing the limits with you, right? They're constantly maxing that thing out. They're constantly going and buying stuff that that they can't afford. And that credit card should not be used for. And yet they continuously go out and do those types of irresponsible things financially. And that can show you that you're being taken advantage of. That can show you that you are enabling your child's bad behavior. You are enabling their bad decisions and basically giving them free money to go spend, especially if you're not taking it away from them and cutting them off at the source. You are an issue, right? And that's the thing with enabling behavior that I want you guys to understand is it's not just the person being enabled that is the issue, even though they are 100% the issue, but the enabler is a big issue. And why is this? Because the person who is being enabled, right, they're just going back to the source that is feeding them. And can you blame them, right? Can you blame them for going back to the place that they can get their bad behavior financed? Can you blame them for going back to the place where it seems that the well never runs dry, right? But the enabler has the power. The enabler has the decision to make. And if the enabler is constantly making the decision to give the enablee, right, the enabled individual money, then the enabler is just as at fault, if not more, than the individual who is asking for money or trying to get money from the enabler themselves. Then another sign of parental enabling behavior, and you see this all the time. You see this far, far, far too often. And this can fall into that situation with the credit card, but it can also just be a situation where the parent gives the child some money, is when they lend the money without a clear agreement for repayment, right? Far too often, parents give their kids money and just say, hey, pay me back whenever, right? Or pay me back, it's no interest, no issue. You can just pay me back as you can, whatever. You know how often those things get paid back? Very, very rarely. Rarely do you get paid back when there is no clear agreement. Just think if you had no clear agreement with the bank about your car loan, or no clear agreement with the bank about your home loan, right? What's the likelihood that you would pay given that there was no clear agreement? We pay because there are clear agreements. We pay back the money that has been lent to us because we have a clear agreement with the lender, and we know that there is a binding contract. We know that there is a binding agreement that if we don't follow up on it, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, then there are consequences. Again, as enablers, people want to keep the consequences from the individuals that they are enabling, right? And so if you are constantly enabling somebody, then lending the money in the first place is probably a really bad idea, because you are not going to want to bring the consequences to them, right? You're constantly trying to keep them from their consequences. Then you're not going to want to bring the consequences when they break the agreement, okay? And so these unclear agreements, or no agreements at all for repayment, or hey, just pay me back whenever, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal, but right? Those types of things are just telltale signs of enabling behavior. And then another sign of parental enabling is feeling resentment or anger after giving money, right? We've talked before, the Lord loves a cheerful giver, right? And there's a reason that we are not cheerful givers when we are enabling somebody else. And the reason that is because we shouldn't be giving them money, right? We shouldn't be giving money to people who we are consistently enabling, right? That is not loving someone. That is not helping someone. You are just feeding their bad habits. You are feeding their perpetuated cycle of making irresponsible decisions financially. And of course, I would feel angry. Of course, I would feel resentment towards that individual if I just keep giving them money and they keep flushing it down the drain. But like I said, enablers are motivated by keeping consequences away, in this case, from their children or from the people that they are enabling. And so you can still keep the consequences away, but it may really frustrate you in the process and really take a toll on your mental health. And that is not what we want ultimately. Now, what are some signs of healthy giving, right? What are signs of healthy giving to your children? Well, when it is clear to both the parent and the child that the money is a one-time gift with no expectation of repayment, right? If you trust that your children are going to make a good decision with the money that you give them, and you give them a one-time gift and there's no expectation for repayment, then that can be a healthy gift, because again, that it is clear here that no repayment is expected. This is not a loan, this is a gift, right? You are giving money away, and it is clear that there is no repayment to be had. And that one-time thing is also very big, because we talked about enabling can be a perpetuated cycle. It can be a very frequent occurrence, and that is not what we want to see when we are giving. And of course, it's not going to create a healthy giving environment. And then number 2, the gift will not harm the giver's financial well-being, right? If you are giving to someone, you're giving to your child, right? If it won't hurt your well-being, then it is a sign that you are giving in a healthy manner. All right. We've talked about this, right? We've talked about if we can't pay our bills, then we shouldn't be helping others pay theirs. Okay. Then third, the use of the funds is transparent, meaning, right? Somebody doesn't just come ask you. Your child just doesn't say, hey, Dad, can I have $500? Right? No. $500 for what? Okay. Or you're wanting to give them $500 or $1,000 or however much it may be. For what? Right? There is an intended purpose for the funds, because that's one of the biggest deals, right? The biggest deals is the money that you give to people who you are enabling, they are misusing, right? They are using in an irresponsible manner. And so understanding how the gift that you make to your child is going to be used, and maybe even seeing it through that they actually use the money for that reason, can be extremely important, because if they're actually using the money for something that is needed, something that will allow them to flourish, right? And that's the reason that we give, because we want others to flourish. And enabling is not going to allow that person to flourish because they never see any consequences. But if you can help somebody who's down on hard times and help them to get back on their feet, and it be a one-time thing or a not frequent thing, then it can go a long way, and it can be extremely helpful and a healthy form of giving. And then if there is no history of chronic requests for money, right, meaning if we're not frequently asking for money from our parents, right, if we're not constantly going to our parents to go, hey, can I have this much? Can I have this money? Can I have this? Can I have that? Right? If there's none of that, then that is a good sign that we are giving to our children in a healthy way. And it's even more of a good sign that you're giving in a healthy way if you want to give your child the gift and they even try to refuse it, right? If they try to say, no, I don't need that. No, I don't want your help, because they want to do things in a self-sufficient way. That is the type of person you want to be giving money to. That is the type of person that is going to use your money in a responsible manner. And so fifth, if the money promotes children's financial health rather than making it easier for them to continue harmful financial behavior, right? We want our giving, especially to our children, to do them good, right? We want them to be grateful for it, and we want it to promote their financial health. We want them to be able to walk out of whatever place they are in a better position than before we gave them the money or before we gave them the financial help that we did. And so we should do that in a way that it will be easier to make good decisions in the future, and they will be motivated to make good decisions in the future, and they should be grateful and thankful for what you have done for them, instead of just that becoming an expectation and them just continuing in harmful financial behaviors that can continue to hold them back over the long term. Look, I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy to say no. I know it's not easy. And I have a whole episode on why we should be saying no to certain things in our financial life. Go watch that. Go watch that episode. And that will help you to go along with this idea of saying no to enabling behavior, saying no to toxic relationships in which you may be enabling somebody. And if you are somebody who you see that you're constantly going back to someone to ask them for money, and you're constantly relying on your parent or relying on somebody in your family or a friend, and you're making bad financial decisions, and you can recognize that in yourself, and you have that self-awareness, then you need to stop. You need to stop because obviously that person wants to help you. That person wants to keep consequences away from you. But ultimately, it is going to be costly to you. Ultimately, when the well does run dry, and the well will run dry, whether it be they will run out of money or they will run out of patience with you, then it is going to be a bad deal. And that relationship will never be what you expected it to be. And so do the right things with money. Do the right things whether you are giving or receiving. Have good relationships with those that you are giving big gifts to or are helping out within your family or close friends. Have good relationships with those individuals and try to keep the giving healthy and try to refrain from enabling behavior, because somebody having the consequences of their bad decisions is a lot of times going to lead them towards good decisions a lot more than their consequences constantly being blocked, right? If somebody just never went to jail because they continued to commit crimes, but if they never went to jail, then they would just continue to commit crimes, because hey, if I can get away with it, why would I not continue to do it? But if they have those consequences, if they go to jail, they go to prison, right? They're locked up for whatever they did, then they'll probably think twice before doing it again, okay? And so there needs to be a consequence for actions. And so allow that to happen. Allow that to happen with your children. Allow that to happen with your family or friends. But if there is a situation where, a healthy gift is warranted and somebody really needs help, and you know that you can help them out and there's a good relationship there, then by all means step into that place and be the help that others need, because our giving can do so much and our finances can do so much for others, and doesn't just have to be an individualistic idea where we're just spending everything on ourselves, and we can maintain financial balance by giving in a healthy way. So thanks for watching this episode. If you could, go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, then be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms, and that'd be greatly appreciated. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long-form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to create a financial plan that is specific to yours and your family's specific situation, I can help you do that. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab, and you can choose the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. So tune in Monday as I talk about the power of the Roth IRA, and I really dig into all the details of what a Roth IRA is. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. God bless.